Steve Koski, host of Papa Steve's Rebel 1100 Garage, where we show do-it-yourselfers how to maintain your motorcycle. Let's get greasy. In this video, I will show you how to install a center stand from T-Rex Racing on my Rebel 1100. The 1100 has a perfectly functional kickstand on the left side of the bike. Why would you want to mount a center stand to supplement it? 600-mile chain maintenance convenience. Honda suggests adjusting, cleaning, and lubricating the drive chain every 600 miles. To do that, you need to lift the rear wheel off the ground. Therein lies your challenge. The most desirable way to lift the rear wheel of a motorcycle off the pavement is by using an inexpensive paddock stand, $40 on sale at Harbor Freight. The paddock stand mounting supports slip under each side of the rear wheel's swing arms, then you pull back and down on the paddock stand U-handle to lift the rear tire of the bike off the pavement. Unfortunately, the Rebel 1100 has extra wide swing arms. Inexpensive paddock stands don't fit it. Modifications are possible, but I haven't been pleased with the fit on my 1100. Other solutions are becoming available, but they are pricey, oftentimes $200 or more. My fix to lifting the back end of the motorcycle has been to drive the front wheel into a Harbor Freight motorcycle stand wheel chock to hold the bike upright. Then use a pneumatic floor jack with a hockey puck on the frame crossover tube beneath the engine to lift the motorcycle. Don't tell anybody this part. My method worked fine until the day I got careless and positioned the hockey puck slightly off-center. I gave the handle of my floor jack one more pump, then watched in lung-deflating disbelief as my Rebel 1100 teetered, then toppled over onto its side, with the now cattywampus stand wheel chock still firmly in place on the front wheel. Who knew the stand wheel chock could even do that? The better way to lift the rear wheel, I decided, was to install T-Rex Racing's center stand. The stand costs about the same as those alternative solutions I mentioned earlier, $249, but has the advantage of being useful for other tasks than chain maintenance. And you don't need to find a place in a crowded garage to store it. Here are the tools I use to install the center stand. You can get by with fewer tools, but these made the job easier. 3/8" drive, ratchet, and torque wrenches. A multi-tool with a 3/8 drive head attachment. 12mm, 13mm, and 17mm sockets in the same sizes in ratcheting wrenches. 5mm, 6mm, 8mm hex head sockets. Allen wrenches may work. White lithium grease. One other important tool is missing. The T-Rex center stand doesn't come with a set of written installation instructions. Instead, the company provides a link to a YouTube instruction video. I included the link to the video in the text with my video. I like instruction videos. I make instruction videos. This one from T-Rex has clear visuals and provides much of the information you need. Odd bits of information are missing. For instance, the company video doesn't tell you in the tool list that you'll need a 17mm wrench. Neither does it tell you what problems do-it-yourselfers will encounter. So I'm striving with my video to fill in the missing bits. Start on the left side of the bike. Remove the foot peg assembly by unscrewing the two M6 hex nuts. I used my 8mm hex head socket and ratchet. The company video does this with an Allen wrench. You might find breaking loose the two hex nuts too difficult with an Allen wrench. The ratchet wrench required surprisingly strong force. Remove the foot peg assembly and set it to one side. The left side of the center stand bracket mounts into the same two hex nut holes as the foot peg assembly. use the two new M6 hex bolts and the two spacers that came with the stand. Mount the center stand bracket, the two replacement bolts, the two spacers, and the foot peg assembly by threading the bolts into their respective mounting holes. Doing this seemed to require 2 more hands than I came equipped with from the factory. The 2 bolts go through the center stand bracket, through the 2 spacers, through the foot peg assembly, then into the 2 threaded bolt holes in the frame. After a few frustrating minutes of fumbling, I got the top bolt to thread into its hole. The bottom bolt was easier after that. Whatever you do, don't tighten down the bolts yet. Leave them very loose or you won't be able to do the next step. Now you need to position the 2 halves of the clamp that fasten the left side of the center stand bracket to the frame cross member under the motor. This task would be easy if you had the motorcycle on a lift, so you could actually see what you were doing. But I did the installation with my motorcycle sitting on its side stand in my driveway. My head was too big to fit under the bike to see where the left side clamps go. So you need to use the eyeballs on your fingertips to position the top half of the clamp. The notch faces toward the inside of the bike. Next, place the lower half of the clamp between the frame cross member and the center stand mounting platform. If you tighten the center stand mounting bolts too much, you won't have enough clearance to insert the lower half of the clamp. After you have the top and bottom halves in position, insert the M8 hex head bolts that came with the stand through the holes in the center stand mounting platform, through the holes in the lower half of the mounting clamp, then thread them into the top half of the clamp. Do not tighten them down yet. The next step is to torque down the 2 mounting bolts securing the center stand bracket and foot peg assembly. Tighten down the hex bolts with the 5mm hex head socket, then torque them to 15 foot-pounds. Now you're ready to torque down the frame crossmember clamp under the bike. Tighten down the 2 M8 bolts with a 13mm wrench, then torque them to 15 pounds also. The left side of the stand is secure. Now, let's work on the right side of the motorcycle. The first task is to remove the exhaust heat shield. Unscrew the mounting bolt with a 5mm hex driver. The heat shield won't fall off when you remove the bolt because it's secured at the back end of the heat shield with 2 supports that slip into mounts on the inside of the shield. If this is the first time you remove the heat shield, it won't be immediately clear which direction to slide the shield to dislodge it. Push the shield toward the mounting bolt hole. The supports on the exhaust pipe will slip out of the mounts on the inside of the shield. Then you'll be able to remove it easily. Now remove the right side foot peg assembly by unscrewing the hex bolt securing it with the 8mm hex head socket. On my bike, unlike the 2 bolts on the left side of the bike, these 2 bolts were reluctant to come out. It's not clear why. Keep at it. You'll get the 2 bolts out eventually. Don't disconnect the brake line assembly. Carefully hang the foot peg assembly out of the way until you need it. The right side center bracket installs pretty much the same way as the left side bracket. Mounting the right side center stand bracket, the two replacement bolts, the two spacers, and the foot peg assembly wasn't much less frustrating than doing the left side. The left side experience taught me to first start the top bolt to hold the center stand bracket, spacer, and foot peg assembly. Remember, the spacer goes between the center stand bracket and the foot peg assembly. With the top bolt holding everything in place, the bottom bolt and spacer was easier to thread. Don't tighten down the bolts yet. Leave them very loose or you won't be able to install the right side clamp. The next step is to position the two halves of the clamp that grips the frame cross member under the motor. Visibility under the bike is easier on the right side with the motorcycle at rest on its side stand. But you still need to use those fingertip eyeballs on the top half of the right side clamp. Remember, the notch faces toward the inside of the bike. Slide the bottom half of the clamp between the cross member and the mounting platform on the right side center stand. After you have the top and bottom halves in position, insert the M8 bolts that came with the stand through the holes in the right side center stand mounting platform, through the holes in the lower half of the mounting bracket, then thread them into the top half of the bracket. Do not tighten them down yet. The next step is to torque down the two mounting bolts holding the right side center stand bracket and foot peg assembly. Tighten the hex bolts down with a 5mm hex head socket, then torque them to 15 foot-pounds. Now you're ready to torque down the clamp under the bike. Tighten down the two M8 bolts with a 13mm wrench, then torque them to 15 foot-pounds also. The right side of the center stand is secure. The hardest part is done. Now let's attach the center stand kick assembly. The kickstand bolts to the right and left center stand mounts with two M10 bolts, lock nuts, and a pair of bushings. The bushings seem to come out of the package already greased, but T-Rex's video instructions tell you to grease them before installing the assembly anyway. I used white lithium grease. The bushings push into the respective holes from the inside on the right and left center stand brackets. The two M10 bolts slide into the bushings from the outside. Then, using a 17mm wrench and a 17mm socket, secure the 2 bolts with the lock nuts that came with your center stand kit. Torque down the M10 bolts to 35 foot-pounds. I couldn't torque the right side M10 bolt with my 3/8" torque wrench because I couldn't get enough ground clearance. So I decided to torque it later with the bike sitting upright on the center stand. That turned out to be a bad idea because of the next step. The next step is to install the center stand spring. The installed spring prevents you from torquing the right side M10 bolt. You could try to put the bike up on the center stand before installing the spring, then torque it. Afterward, put the bike back down on the side stand. Now you can install the center stand spring. Remove the bottom spring bracket from the kickstand part of the center stand. Insert the spring through the hole in the bracket, then attach the spring through the hole for it in the right center stand bracket. Insert the M10 bolt through the hole provided in the center stand swing arm. Lift the arm so you can thread the M8 bolt into the spring bracket. Use a 12mm wrench to tighten the M8 bolt. Thread in the M8 bolt until you can't turn it anymore. Then torque the bolt to 15 foot-pounds. I couldn't torque down the M8 bolt with the center stand in the up position. The tire was too close to the bolt head for my torque wrench to fit. So I waited until I could put the center stand down and torqued it then. All that is left to do is test the center stand. Straddle the motorcycle, then raise the bike to its perpendicular balance point. Raise the side stand. Put your left foot on the center stand foot peg and push the stand to the ground. Grab both handle grips and pull back firmly on the bar. It took me several tries before I succeeded, but I hadn't fully tightened the spring yet. With a bit of practice, the 1100 finally rose up on the center stand and settled into its parked position with the rear wheel about an inch off the ground. Success. Here's my review of the T-Rex center stand. Printed installation instructions would be helpful. The YouTube installation video has shortcomings. The video starts out by telling you what tools you'll need, but neglects to mention that you'll need a 17mm wrench, a 17mm socket, and a torque wrench, even though torque settings are provided throughout the instructions. The deadpan matter-of-fact voiceover did too little to alert you to the scattered assembly problems you will encounter while installing the stand. T-Rex needs to hire a capable technical writer to craft clear, written instructions and to take charge of script writing for the instruction video. I can live with the monotone voiceover in the video if the information is complete and the writing well edited. The missing information in the video verges on misinformation. Professional quality communication is essential if customers are to perceive T-Rex products as high-quality accessories. The center stand is mostly out of view after it's mounted on the bike. That's a good thing because the design of the stand is heavily utilitarian and lightly aesthetic. On the downside, the weld marks are unrefined and so is much of the stand's appearance. The stand seems rugged enough though, it's unlikely to fail. So far the stand does what it's supposed to. Hold my 1100 perpendicular to the pavement with the rear tire off the ground. If the stand relieves me of the need to use my floor jack to lift the rear tire for the recurring need to adjust, clean, and lubricate the chain every 600 miles, then I will consider the $250 the stand cost money well spent. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd be delighted if you would subscribe to Cruisin' with Papa Steve. If you don't, I'll be just another codger talking to himself on the internet.